Welcome along to Betting Weekly Extra Time, European edition. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Fellas, another good week last week. Steve, we had 2-unit plays cashing and also midweek across Champions League and pretty much everything. The boys have been picking out some winning selections. Well done, one and all.
Good day to you, Dan, and James as well. I think I hit my 2-unit play last weekend. Got a bit unlucky with the Osasuna pick, but you're absolutely right. There's winners coming left, right, and centre from lots of shows, either recorded or live. Especially, it's been an unbelievable week to start off the live shows. So it's a good time of year to get some winners in before Christmas, isn't it?
It is indeed. We're going to talk final round of Ligue 1 as well. We've got some picks and some plays and some leans for you, James. But we won't be able to lean on Ligue 1 after this weekend, will we?
No, it's quite an early finish, isn't it? The last round of games of 2024. That's because on the final weekend before Christmas, they've got the French Cup, which is being played then. So, yeah, it's getting to that stage of the season where the schedules go a little bit crazy. We obviously know in the Premier League, Christmas and the festive period is usually super busy. So we're getting to that stage now in Europe as well. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll see some variation, I think, in how many games are played per country.
Yeah, some interesting scheduling chat to come. Stay with us, please. It's not boring from James and Steve when it comes to the French League. The boys' profit and loss is on screen. This is far more interesting.
Yes.
The show is very much in profit over the course of this season. The boys have been cashing some winners over the course of August through until December. Long may it continue. Get your comments in via YouTube as well. If you are betting any of our plays, let us know. If you've got your own ideas of where your money is going, where you're investing this weekend, let us know your picks across the continent. In all the leagues, obviously, we focus on the 4 major leagues outside of the Premier League. But if you've got any other fancies, it's a good community, and share your selections, whether it's in the Netherlands or Portugal or wherever you've got your expert eye cast. Right, let's kick off the action and the selections from the boys on Saturday. We'll go Saturday, Sunday, as we have been doing the last couple of weeks. So we're going to kick off, which feels a bit traditional now, Steve, with your 2-unit pick in Germany. This is 9:30 on Saturday, Eastern time. It's Gladbach at home to Kiel. Gladbach are short price favourites here at minus 225 here. We have talked about Gladbach previously. You sort of know what you're getting with them. I think they're fairly predictable. And if that continues to be the case, given how poor Kiel have been since they jumped up, then a home win is on the cards. But we're not betting them at minus 225, Steve.
Yeah, 2-unit pick is on Borussia Mönchengladbach -1 on the Asian handicap. It's actually minus 137 now at the time of recording. It's what we've often called a bit of a free hit, really. As long as they win the game, we don't lose anything. And I think for me, with the 2-unit selection, that's the most important thing. I've got to be really confident that either the pick's going to win or at least not lose. So this fitted right in my wheelhouse. I was against Kiel last week in my 2-unit play, and Leipzig duly beat them 2-0. And what we do know is that we're betting against a very bad team here in Holstein Kiel, who are Bundesliga 2 standard in all but name. And everything I said about them last week still applies. I actually think they're a terrible combo I think they're a bad team, an unlucky team, and an underachieving team. I mean, that is just not a great concoction, is it? I'm starting to actually think, should we even have sympathy for teams who are underachieving with their metrics and things like that? There's a reason teams are bad, and Holstein Kiel are one of them. Not really much to shout about away from home, apart from that freak draw against Leverkusen, where they did come from behind that day and surprised everyone. But Mönchengladbach, like you said, Dan, and we have referenced it in recent shows, they're much more consistent this season. They've won 4 of their last 5 at home. They drew last week against Dortmund at home, which is not a bad result at all. There is a suspension. We've got to talk about Julian Weigl is suspended in midfield, and also Thomas Kvanchara is suspended. He came off the bench in the 89th minute last week and somehow managed to contrive himself to get 2 yellow cards for the rest of the game. So I don't know whether he's got a date this weekend or whatever. But he's not important anyway, and he comes off the bench. This is straightforward. I think Gladbach easily have enough to win the game, and it should be probably by at least a 2-goal margin or more. Really decent team, actually top 5 for metrics offensively in the league, that's better than even I thought they were going to be. So they've got the scoring power here against a really bad defense. Even if Kiel do score, then I think Gladbach can cover this handicap. 3-1, 4-1 sort of win. So -1 on that Asian line on Borussia Mönchengladbach is the 2-unit play for me at -137 this week.
So he's been flying with his 2-unit picks, as has James. We're not going to get to James's 2-unit play just yet, though, as we just continue in chronological order. And we go to Italy for a midday kickoff on Saturday, which is Udinese against Napoli. Napoli are minus money favourites away from home here, -129. Udinese nearly 4-1. Napoli beaten by Lazio last weekend at home, which is a bit of a shock, and we were on Napoli. A week to get it out of the system. No European footballers. We've been stressing all season. And generally, when they have played the rank and file, James, they've been good. They've won their last 3 when minus money away from home. You're not steering away from Napoli just because they let us down last week. I say let us down. It was part of the same game, partly. We needed more goals, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. No, I'm sticking with Napoli actually, Dan. They've been pretty good for us on the money line this season. So I'm backing Napoli to win this weekend. As you say, they're -129 to get the victory away at Udinese. And I think that's a pretty good price. What I really like about Napoli is how well they've bounced back this season. When they have had a bad result, as they did last weekend, they've generally done pretty well the following week. They haven't lost 2 games in a row yet in Serie A this season. We saw them have that big defeat at home to Atalanta not that long ago, but they came back and did really well the following week then. And earlier on in the season when they lost, they came back and won. I think it was 3-0 the following week on that occasion. So what we've seen from Napoli so far is that A, they're a very good team and they should be competing at the top of the table all the way through the season. And B, it's that bounce back ability really that I think is a sign of sort of the character of this side, actually, because you're going to have setbacks over the course of a season. It's how you handle them. And from what I've seen from Napoli, they're handling their setbacks for me as well as any side in Serie A this season. So it's minus money. Some people don't like minus money away from home. But as I say, they've been really good in these situations so far this season. And Udinese, for me, if you look at their home record, it's actually not too bad. They've got plenty of wins on the board. But if you look at their record, home and away, against the better sides in Serie A this season, then it's not great at all. Just to run through some of those results for you. They lost 2-0 at home to Juventus. They lost 3-2 at home to Inter. They've lost 2-0 away to Milan and Roma. The only big side Udinese have really managed to beat this season is Lazio, and that was way back in August before Lazio had really got going. So I think if you look at the top line figures on Udinese, as I say, they look pretty solid at home, but this is a sort of team that they've really struggled against this season. So I think everything about this game points towards Napoli. We've mentioned it, haven't we, a million times on the show, but the fact that Napoli aren't playing in Europe this season is a huge factor here as well for me. They're just going weekend to weekend with these league matches. That's all they're focused on doing. So they've had a week to get that defeat against Lazio last weekend out of their system, and they should be ready to go again here. So yeah, it's my 1-unit pick. It's on Napoli. It's to win this weekend, and that's available at -129.
3 p.m. on Saturday in France is Reims against Monaco here. Monaco are the favourites at +108. Lost to Arsenal in midweek in the Champions League. I was at Emirates, Steve, for this one. Thought they played all right in fits and starts. Certainly second half they did okay, but didn't take their chances, the few chances that they had, and just 1 or 2 lapses punished them. And really, Arsenal should have maybe scored more. It does seem a little bit all or nothing with them at the minute, Steve. They haven't drawn any of their last 10, so is it going to be all or nothing for them this weekend?
Hopefully nothing, because I'm going to be against them. This is my 1-unit play, and I'm going Tino bet on Stade de Reims at +145. So this was nearly my hot dog pick. I nearly took Reims on the money line at +240, but in the end I decided I want a little bit of draw security. For anyone who looks at head-to-head records, look away now. You will not be betting this because the last 5 head-to-head meetings have all been won by the away team. It's a very strange quirk. Just 2 of the last 17 head-to-heads have been won by the home team, funny enough. But what it does mean is that Rams have had some decent success against Monaco recently. 3 wins in the last 5 have been Rams victories. So I don't think they won't believe they can beat them. This is a proper sandwich game for Monaco. They've just played Arsenal away, like you said. That was a tough match. It was, it didn't play too badly in patches, but it's never easy, is it, going there? And it's 3 days later. I mean, this is the first bit of topic of conversation about the Liga scheduling. I think Monaco have been done dirty a little bit here. And they are actually playing in midweek. The very last game of Liga in 2024 is midweek, and it's Monaco PSG. Now, that's a
Why
huge
is that happening,
encounter.
Steve?
Because the Trophée de Champion is going to be playing in early January, somewhere in the Middle East now, I do believe. It was going to be in China. It's an absolute mess. It's a disgrace, really, how the Trophée de Champion gets some sort of preferential treatment. But anyway, that's a big game in midweek, looking ahead, no matter what the situation in the season. So I think they could overlook a Rams side who are inconsistent. They're very, very difficult to get a read on. But they've got a manager who drew twice against Monaco last season when he was at Le Havre. Was quite impressed how he set himself up against Monaco those 2 games. And I think they can catch them cold. I've said for a while Monaco are a little bit overrated, in my personal opinion. They can be all or nothing. You can certainly catch them on a bad day. And plus 145 on the Tino bet. So if it ends a draw, we get all the stake refunded. Like you said, the Monaco don't seem to do draws very often, do they? So this almost might be a pointless play. You might as well get them on the money line. But I've got a feeling they put in a stinker of a performance here, Monaco.
Well, Ransar, plus 240 if you do fancy on the money line. We've got a safer route with a draw no bet play. Let's get to James's 2-unit pick, which is in Spain this week. An interesting one for me. Real Madrid away, Rayo, but I did a little bit of digging when I did get the picks in from the boys. And although Real Madrid were, I thought, a little bit lucky against Atalanta, Rayo haven't been great at home this season. But then we've got this situation with Mbappe. I presume he's out this weekend, James. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, well, I really like Real Madrid. They're my pick, my 2-unit pick. They're obviously really short on the money line to just win the game. So I'm backing Real Madrid on the Asian handicap with a -1 goal start, which is available at -107. So with this pick, if Real Madrid win the game by a single goal, then you're going to get your stakes back. Almost a bet to nothing if you think Real will win. And then if they go on and win it by 2 or more goals, then you're going to make a profit. So I really like them here. I think these games that Real Madrid have had recently against the sort of the run-of-the-mill teams in La Liga, they've been a really safe bet to win. You know, we've been quite critical, or I've been quite critical of Real Madrid and some of the tactical problems they've had this season. It's obviously a massive talking point in the sports media generally. But I think we've actually overlooked just how well they're doing in La Liga against everybody other than the other top 2 teams, which is Barcelona and Atletico Madrid. If you leave out their games against Barcelona and Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid have won 10 of their last 11 Liga matches. Hardly any slip-ups. And of those 10 games they've won, I think they've won 8 of them by 2 or more goals. So actually, I think Real Madrid, to be honest, have got a bit more in common with the old Real Madrid that we're used to than maybe people are talking about, because obviously they're locked in this title battle and there have been issues with how they set up on the pitch and all the rest of it. So it's a sort of game that should be a routine win for Real Madrid. And the more I looked at it, the more I thought, you know what, I cannot actually see any reason why they wouldn't win this game. There is the issue with Mbappe, as you said, Dan. He came off in midweek in that win over Atalanta. As we're recording this today, which is Thursday, we're expecting the verdict on what the injury is and how long he'll be out for to come through at some point in the next couple of hours. Almost certainly will be out this weekend. But I don't think that should matter in this sort of game in La Liga. You mentioned maybe they were a bit lucky to beat Atalanta. I do think that win will give them confidence because, to win away from home against arguably the top side in Serie A this at the moment, it's obviously a big result for them. So I think from Real Madrid's point of view, to me, this should be a routine Liga win. And Rayo Vallecano really struggling at home, second worst home record in La Liga. I haven't seen anything from them over the course of the season, both statistically and watching highlights of their matches, that mean they really should be troubling Real Madrid here. So I think it's a bit of a bet to nothing here. Real Madrid should get the win. If it's by a single goal, as I say, with our pick, you're going to get your stakes back. But all the data for me in this sort of game in La Liga this season shows that Real Madrid can go on and win it by a couple of goals. And if they do that, then you're going to make a profit.
2-unit play from James. Real Madrid -1 on the Asian handicap at -107. Jude Bellingham, incidentally, scored in his last 4, plus 320 anytime goal scorer. -122 just to have a shot on target, which he's managed in his last 5.
What is it?
Seems
about
big, that, doesn't it?
Every single match, Bet Rivers dangle a carrot on Jude Bellingham for a shot on target. It doesn't matter who it's against. Crazy. I mean, and if Mbappe's not playing, he's going to be even more offensive, isn't he?
Well,
that's
it.
He's playing a little bit further forward again, isn't he? Now,
Yeah.
I think after playing further back earlier this season.
He is. And the thing about Bellingham and Mbappe is that has been, for me, the big weakness. The fact that they both like to get into the same sort of areas on the pitch. Mbappe, obviously, from kickoff as a centre forward, but Bellingham running late into the box. So if Mbappe is out, as we think he almost certainly will be, I think it will massively benefit Bellingham in terms of him getting into scoring positions. That is a great price.
Yeah, seems to be big, doesn't it? We'll see what happens. Hopefully he can get on the score sheet. But more importantly, we want the 2U hit from James to cash, and that is Real Madrid -1. So a win gets you your money back, 2-0 or better, and you get the full payout. Now, we have got one Saturday lean from Steve in Germany, and we've got a little bit of French chat to come before we move into Sunday's games. Steve, you just wanted to have a word on Union Berlin against Bochum. Bochum, who are destined, I think, for the second tier, aren't they? Having a shocking season, and you're back in the capital club.
Yeah, I've been trying to avoid talk about Bochum because I know they're a club close to your heart, and but we simply have to talk about them. They still haven't won a game. They've lost 11 times out of 13. Away from home, they are pointless. And I've been wondering, why have I not been betting against this team recently? And I think there's a lot of people maybe thinking that way. And I think the reason is because I expected them to just pick up a bit. They sacked the manager, changed the head coach. But I've not. I mean, the last 2 games, they've been a little bit better. They've lost 2-0 and 1-0. But I think this is a team desperately in need of the winter break, right? And I think give them maybe a January window, 3 or 4 weeks on the training pitch, I think they can maybe improve. It wouldn't shock me still if Bochum got in the playoff position, partly because how bad Kiel and Heidenheim might be, and partly because I think there is some quality in the team that could come. But there's nothing on the metrics that supports them getting a result here. Union Berlin are not in amazing form, but their home record's not too bad this season. Overall, just looking back, yes, 3 wins out of 6 at home. They usually beat up the poor teams. This is just a money line lean at -167 because Union Berlin are the sort of team, historically, you need that 1-0 on your side. So for a minute, I even thought about it as a 2-unit pick, actually. But, that I had better options. But I think Bochum will probably lose both their remaining games before the winter break now. And, they've got Heidenheim next week. That's actually winnable, to be fair. But they just look at a team that need that break. They're just going nowhere. And it's a sorry state of affairs, isn't it?
It is. I mean, their expected goals every week is nearly always under 1. I think they've managed over 1.5 just twice. I'm looking at some stats here. It's just been, they lost players in the summer. What can we do? We're destined for a run in the second tier, maybe. Let's talk Liga. Steve, you wanted to bring up Marseille-Lille here, and James has got an interesting angle on this as well. I mean, Marseille are favourites for this one. They've won their last 3. Lille unbeaten. I was just tracking back, unbeaten in 15 in all competitions, and that includes wins over Atleti and Real Madrid in the Champions League, Steve. I mean, they're having a very good spell at the moment, although they've sort of generally struggled in Liga away at Marseille. What's your sort of thoughts around this game for those that might want a financial interest?
I think it's quite an interesting week in the French top tier because all of the top 5 are playing against each other, including that Monaco PSG game in midweek. And PSG have dropped points recently, so suddenly the title race might be the door might be open for someone. I do have a lean in this game, and it's over 2.5 goals. Over 2.5 goals at -113. I thought this goal line would be 2.75 or 3. Marseille, you can't trust them at home, but they did just beat Monaco here, which should give them some confidence. They're obviously getting results on the road, which is great. And if they can't make use of this fixture in a year where they're not involved in European football, when can they make use of it? Because Lille, we saw them against Sturm Graz in midweek. They won the game, but they look vulnerable at the back. I don't know whether it's a bit of tiredness or what, a few injuries catching up with them. But I think if you get at this Lille defence, the chances are there for Marseille. Equally, Lille, I think, will fancy having to go at the Marseille defence. So I think there'll be a few goals in this game. Marseille don't have a good record against Lille in recent years. Just one win against them since COVID, since the COVID times. So it's not historically a great fixture for them. But if they can't beat Lille this time with the scheduling, then I'm not sure when they are going to beat them. But the lean is over 2.5 goals, just simply because I think the goal line is generously low.
Speaking of the scheduling, James, just before we came on air, you were talking about it. Just tell our viewers and listeners, what the situation is with these two teams.
Yeah, well, after that win that Lille had in the Champions League in midweek, I did see a clip going around last night and this morning of the Lille club president making a point of going and talking to the media and pointing out to them that this game between Marseille and Lille this weekend, it will be Marseille's 15th game of the season and it will be Lille's 25th game of the season, which is unbelievable, isn't it? It's almost double the number of matches and we're only in December. The reason for that, of course, is that Marseille aren't playing in Europe and Lille are. And Lille had to go through a qualifying phase to get there. So his point was that he felt this game should be on Sunday rather than Saturday to give Lille more time to get ready for it. I haven't verified those stats, but I'm sure Olivier Letang, the president in question, has got them right. So for anybody out there who does feel that fatigue and factors like that are a big factor in how games will go after a team has played in Europe, this would be one of the absolute standout games of the season in League One in terms of there being a clear disparity between the two sides. Marseille very much in the same position as Napoli are in Serie A, where they've only got the league to play for and they're going weekend to weekend for that. And Lille have obviously not only had a very busy week with that midweek game, but as those stats show, they've had a very busy season. So, big difference in terms of match preparation time here would make me not necessarily lean towards Marseille to win it. I think they're plus 120 to win it, but it would certainly put me off being on Lille in any way at all in this game because I think the president is not just PR. I think he's got a very good point. They will be tired. They do have a few injuries, maybe not to key players, but the sort of injuries which mean they can't rotate as much as they would like. So, yeah, have a look for that this weekend. Whether it would lead to late goals or late mistakes from Lille, I don't know, but it was enough to put me off back in Lille in any way this weekend.
Yeah, it might be one worth getting involved in play if there's few goals in the first half and a little bit of fatigue kicks in, that sort of over goals line might cash in the second half. We'll get a brief line on each of your PSG, Leon, since we're talking sort of title race and so on and so forth. James, any thoughts on Paris Saint-Germain, Leon?
Yeah, well, what Steve said, I agree with. They have been dropping points recently, not playing particularly well. I wasn't that impressed by the 3-0 win they had in midweek, actually, in the Champions League. So looking at the prices, the goal line is set really high on this game. All the markets are expecting loads and loads of goals, which I understand. But having looked through the prices, nothing for me. It should be an open and entertaining game. What I would say about Lyon is that they're very good going forward, but they're not great for me at the back. So PSG, not even at their best, could still get the win here for me.
Dave?
Do you know what? If Lyon won the game, I wouldn't be shocked. Plus 540 on Lyon on the money line. They'll have a go here. But the problem is, and this has been an issue for them against PSG last season, certainly, they're too naive. They just leave themselves too open. They think they can go toe-to-toe with them. And I think there's a case to certainly attack PSG in patches, but you can't do it all game. And I think that will let probably Lyon down here. So I think we're looking at some goals, though, in the game. The goal line's really high, though, at 3.5. I think it's minus money. So, but if Lyon got a result, I wouldn't honestly be shocked.
One to consider then, when it's Paris Saint-Germain and Lyon. That game is on Sunday. We'll rattle through our Sunday plays. When I say rattle, we'll take a considered view over the Sunday selections from the boys next. We're going to start with the same game parlay from Steve. Heidenheim versus Stuttgart. This is 9:30 on Sunday. Heidenheim plus 285. Stuttgart minus 117. Stuttgart cash big time in midweek for Betting Weekly Live followers, thanks to your good self, Steve, and the newsletter as well. Is that right? Have I got that right?
Yeah, great plug for the newsletter here. Get on these bets early.
Bettingweeklystudios.com. Sign up and you can get those picks nice and early. So Stuttgart cashed for us. Will they cash for Steve in the same game parlay? Just a couple of elements that you put together here, Steve. I've got to tell everyone that Steve did text me this morning fairly early and said, I've got one for you. It's about 5 or 6 elements in the Barcelona game. And then a few hours later, he's gone for just the 2 at Stuttgart.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still searching for my first SGP winner of the season. I think it's quite clear I'm not very good at SGPs at all. So, look, I would much rather have half a unit on anything else now. It's getting a bit of mental torture. I feel like one of those teams at the bottom of the table that can't get a win. I feel like Bochum with the SGP. So I'm just waiting for something to go wrong with it. So what I've done here, this match was on my radar for all sorts of picks. Hot dog picks, 1 units, 2 units, whatever. Because I do think Stuttgart come here and win quite well. Heidenheim have been really poor recently. And, I mean, you worry for them. We thought this might happen. They are a squad, you sort of bottom 4 or 5 squad in the Bundesliga. And they're also playing European football at the same time. They are away in Istanbul on Thursday evening. We don't know the result of that game yet, but it's just too hard for these players to keep mixing domestic and European games. And we've seen what Stuttgart have had an easy night against Young Boys there. 5-1 win, confidence high. Came from 2-0 down last week against Union Berlin. I'm pretty sure they come here and win the game. And, I mean, I was looking at Stuttgart -1.5 handicap. I was looking at hot dog lines of like the Asian over 3.75 over 4. So I'm obviously liking Stuttgart to win and win well. I'm liking goals. So I'm just combined an SGP together here, right? Stuttgart and tie in addition to over 2.5 goals. And it's actually +110 now. Okay. So we've even got the 2-all draw and the 3-all draw on our side, which you might laugh here, but Stuttgart have been known to be involved in some of these high-scoring draws, and Heidenheim usually have a go. Since the start of last season, Stuttgart have only had 6 wins in the league that have been 1-0 or 2-0, and that's out of 28 wins. So only roughly 1 in 5 of their wins are by the 1-0, 2-0 scoreline. They're not that sort of team that just grinds out wins. When they win, they usually win pretty well. Usually with both teams scoring. So that's why I do like the goals in this game. I mean, if this ends 2-0, I think I'll just give up. I really think I'll give up. And I might as well just start the show at -half a unit when we do the SGP. And I'll do away with it. But Stuttgart and tie, plus over 2.5 goals, +110. That looks genuinely a big price to me, considering the circumstances.
Yeah, don't worry. You'll cash this one, I'm sure. Le Havre Strasbourg, which is 11 a.m. on Sunday for James and hot dog. We've got 2 hot dogs back to back here. First of all, in France with James. This is an interesting one because I did a little bit of digging in the stats here. Strasbourg away from home. Well, they don't cash this particular bet that often, James. So talk me into this one because you're siding with Strasbourg. How?
Yeah, this is a weird hot dog pick. I have to be honest. People might look at it and scratch their heads, but I think it can be justified. So my hot dog pick is on Strasbourg, -1 on the Asian handicap, which is available at +300. So if Strasbourg were to win the game by a single goal, you'll get your stakes back. And then if they go on and win it by a couple of goals, you're going to make a profit. I say weird because there's only actually 2 points between these sides in the table. Le Havre, the lower of the two, I think they've got 12 points, and Strasbourg on 14 points. So if you look at the League One table, not a lot to pick between them. You'd be thinking, well, why would Strasbourg win this game and potentially win it by a couple of goals? But I actually think that Le Havre have been worse than their league position would suggest, to be honest. They've lost 10 out of 14 games. They could have lost more than that for me. They're second from bottom of the table. I personally think the only team below them in the table, Montpellier, are a better side than Le Havre. Every single time I've watched them this season, they've been really, really poor. They're the joint lowest scorers in the division. They've only got 11 goals in 14 matches. So I make them right now the weakest side in League One. I haven't seen anything at home to suggest they could do particularly well here. And Strasbourg, part of the reason I think they're so low in the table at the moment is they have had a really bad run of results. They've lost 4 of their last 5. So their form isn't great, but I do think over the season they should finish comfortably above Le Havre. So what I'm actually trying to do here is get on a side who are, in my view, much better than Le Havre at a time when actually maybe their price is a bit bigger because of their current form. One thing I really liked about Strasbourg last weekend when they drew 0-0 at home to Reims was that they tightened up defensively. They'd conceded 10 in their previous 4. They clearly deliberately worked on conceding fewer chances last weekend, and it worked. And that was the clincher for me, because I think against the Le Havre side who can't score goals anyway, if Strasbourg play defensively this week as they did last week, there's a very good chance for me they keep a clean sheet here, and I think they've got enough going forward to get the win. So it's a funny one, as I say, if you just look at the League One table, but I do think if you dig a bit deeper, there's reasons why maybe Strasbourg are overpriced here. You might just want to back them on the money line. Plus 150 is pretty good price. But for the hot dog, where we're looking at plus 200 or bigger, my pick is Strasbourg on the Asian handicap. As I say, minus 1 goal start is available at the moment at plus 300.
3-1 for the hot dog. Steve has gone over 2s as well. For his hot dog, which is Villarreal against Real Betis, which is 12:30 on the Sunday. Villarreal are the short price favourites. I think you could probably make a bit of a case on the money line, maybe. But Betis did get that good result last weekend. Are they involved in Europe? I think they are. Steve, talk us through this one. Goals on the agenda.
Yeah, just before that, back to the Le Havre game. Le Havre have lost 7 times by 2 goals or more this season, and 7 times to 0. That's a great pick from James. They're awful. I agree with him. I think they're one of the really poor teams in France right now. My hot dog is Villarreal Betis over 3.75 goals at plus 215. So I'm looking for goals. I'm convinced I'm going to hit one of these hot dog big goal lines again soon, and this is the match for it. Mentioned Villarreal loads of times. I'm not going to add too much more. We know what they play like. They play one way. It's open. It's attacking. It's end to end. They try and suck sides into shootouts. The last 2 games they've played have actually both been under 2.5. One in the Cup and one against Bilbao last week. And Bilbao are an unusual case. They're such a hard team to get sucked into a shootout. Even Villarreal couldn't really do it. But this is going to be different. They're at home. And the home, I mean, no team has more over 2.5 goals at home than Villarreal. No team in La Liga has more over 3.5 goal games than Villarreal. We know what we're getting at this stadium, and they're facing a Betis side who they're not a team that really bet on very often because they're inconsistent. They're hard to get a read on. But do you know what? They've really struggled recently defensively, Real Betis. 10 goals conceded in the last 4 games. That is a stat that can't be ignored. I did see the Valencia defeat when they lost their 4-2, and they did not look secure to me. They've also got a 5,000-mile return trip in Europe on Thursday evening. They are going to Moldova, a team called Petrocub. Now, they'll probably win that game with a bit to spare. Petrocub are not very good. But you don't want to be going to Moldova this time of year, do you? 5,000-mile return
Not
trip.
if I can help it.
No, exactly. I think almost like there will probably be a bit of travel fatigue here, frustration sort of thing. And I think Villarreal will probably win the game. It could be one of them games where Villarreal knock up a decent number, 3 goals on their own sort of thing. But you'd never trust Villarreal to keep a clean sheet, would you? So I think this is a match which could not just go over the goal line, but well over. And I like to identify these games. I sometimes get it right, and I think this is the spot. So, over 3.75 goals on the Asian line is, it's a half winner if there's 4 goals scored. For those who want to play it straight and simple, just over 3.5 goals, plus 165. Nothing wrong with that at all. So, but yeah, this match, I think Villarreal Betis really does open up. It could be something like 3-1 or 3-2.
Yeah, Villarreal very much profitable at home in all of those goal markets. One to keep the right side of. We have got 4 Sunday leans for you. We've got a little bit of Monday chat to come as well. Let's talk you through the Sunday leans. First of all, Steve, you've got one for us. In Italy, I'm going to go time order. So this is 7:30 Eastern. Lecce Monza, what's the play?
Well, from an over to an under 2 goals, Asian line plus 102. This could be an awful game of soccer, and it's 19th against 16th. I'm sometimes a little bit wary here. I've said before, these theory games where a match can look like a banker under all day and it can randomly explode, but I just struggle to see how there's goals here. Lecce just don't score very often. 8 goals all season, don't create much, and Monza are just awful. I mean, Monza don't know where their next win's coming from. Recent head-to-heads have all been under 2.5 goals. The last 5 all under 2.5 goals. So I think we're looking at a dreary, dismal game. And I thought the goal line under 2 would be minus money. You can get plus money on it. You only lose the bet if it goes over 2.5 goals. Full push if there's 2 goals exactly. But, I mean, the 0-0 detectors out here, 1-0 to someone. It's going to be horrendous.
Not worth setting the alarm for by the sounds of things. Get your bets on the night before, wake up to a winner, which is always nice to do. Staying in Italy for Bologna, Fiorentina. James, what do you think?
Well, I think this will be a lot more entertaining than the game that Steve's just talked about.
Set your alarm for 9.
Yeah, I'm expecting both teams to score. Yes, is my pick here at minus 120. I really like it for 2 reasons. The first is that both of these teams have generally scored in their Serie A games this season. Bologna have scored in 11 out of 14. Fiorentina have scored in 11 out of 13. So plenty of stats in their favour in terms of scoring goals. And I also really like backing, yes, in the both teams to score market when you have 2 teams who are generally in good form, because that means that they're scoring goals at the moment. And that's very clearly the case here. Fiorentina going into the game with, I think it's 8 straight wins now. This fantastic run has taken them towards the top of the table. And Bologna have won 4 out of their last 6. So there are a few metrics out there which would suggest maybe it won't be a high scoring game. I think if you look at Bologna at home and Fiorentina away, it gives a slightly different picture. But I'm very confident that these 2 sides will look at this and think this is a winnable match. You know, they're not facing an Inter or Napoli. I think Bologna will look at Fiorentina and vice versa and think this is winnable. So I'm expecting both teams to have a real go here. And as I say, that the scoring stats and the current form stats would suggest an open game. So I think minus 120 on yes in the both teams to score market is a really good price.
Just a footnote to that Lecce Monza game, it's 6:30. Definitely don't set your alarm on a Sunday for 6:30. Also from James in France, Rennes against Angers. Asian play for you here, James.
Yeah, Rennes -1 on the Asian handicap at home here to Angers. Available at plus money actually at the moment, plus 102. That might waver a little bit, I suppose, around the even money line before kickoff. But we've said many, many times on this show now, going back over a couple of seasons actually, that Rennes are a really strong home side. Generally very, very positive in the way that they play in front of their home fans. They always have a sellout crowd of about 28,000 when they play at home, and they really enjoy it. They've not been in great form. Generally, they're struggling at the wrong end of the table by their standards. They lost last weekend, but their home form has held up yet again. They've won 4 out of 7 at home. Their last home game was a 5-0 win against Saint-Etienne, who, like Angers, are one of the weaker sides in the division. So it's really a bet to nothing this. If Rennes win by a single goal, you get your stakes back. If they go on and win by more than 1 goal, which they've shown they can do, you're going to make a profit. I see very little chance of Rennes not winning this game. I think they're strong enough both generally and at home to get the win. So I think on the Asian handicap, you'll get a very good run for your money here.
And finally, for the Sunday leans, the big game in Spain, well, in terms of the time slot, is Barcelona, who are at home to Leganés. Barcelona are minus 1,000, no value there. So where is the value for a lean for those that want to have a bet in the Barcelona game, Steve?
I'm looking at the minus 2.25 Asian handicap on Barcelona and minus 127. Thought about having them as my 2-unit play, actually. It would have been on the minus 2 line. That's at minus 175, which I still would have considered. So I basically, I think they're going to win very, very well. I had a good look at this game earlier in depth. Nearly had the SGP on it. I had a 5-legger going at one point, which I suppose I'm going to have to mention now, aren't I? But it's actually 4 legs.
Come on.
You don't have to include.
Yeah. Come on, you've got to say it now. You've got to say it. Because this one will cash and the other one won't. No, they both will.
This is, So over 3.5 goals. Barcelona half-time lead. Lewandowski to score anytime and Lamine Yamal anytime, plus 510. You could throw in also Rafinha to score here, 11-1. But I think Barcelona basically are far too... The gulf between these two sides is really vast. And after the defeat they had to Las Palmas at home, I don't think Barcelona are going to take them suddenly lightly. I think they might want to put on a bit of a show, do the professional job. They've got loads of goals in them. Their ganas are... I mean, I've got to be honest, I think there's some really, really poor teams in all the leagues we cover at the minute. And Leganas are one of them.
Easy win for Barcelona. Take note of the SGP as well from Steve. Bound to cash, as it's not an official play. We have got one more game to look at. Monday night action. Last Monday, the boys came out with some really solid plays. It was a nice, profitable end to the weekend. So just James has got some thoughts on Lazio against Inter here, which is a really good game on a Monday. Inter, of course, lost late to Leverkusen in the Champions League, their first away loss of the season in all competitions. Lazio did us to a certain extent in that game against Napoli. They do play in Europe tonight. What is the lean for those that like a Monday night playing Serie A, James?
My lean is supporting Lazio here, Dan. Lazio plus 0.25 on the Asian handicap at home to Inter, which is available at minus 112. I think it's a really good price on Lazio. I think the pattern of Inter's season is they've been overrated by the market all the way through. Yes, they're obviously still the Serie A title favourites and they're up there and they're potential winners of it. But I've been happy to oppose them this season when they faced some of the other bigger sides in Serie A. We did that when they played Napoli and made a profit, and we did it, I think, way back in September in the Milan derby, where we backed Milan, and that worked out as well. So I think Inter here, plus 112 away from home, it's plus money, but I think it's too short because Lazio have been such a fantastic team at home. I think plus 112 on on Inter, is very difficult to justify. So, yeah, looking at the prices, I think Lazio are too big. They've got the best home record in Serie A. They've won 6 out of 7. They've drawn the other one. So if they did either of those two outcomes, you'll make a profit here. And they've shot up the table and they're in really, really good form. They're playing Ajax as we're recording today in Europe. I think it's probably less of an issue because this is a Monday night game, not a Sunday game. They've got a little bit more time to recover. So I think they're a really good price. Should say a couple of factors maybe against it. Yes, Inter do have a very good away record. I think they've won 4 and drawn 2 away from home. So they have done well on the road. You could argue Lazio maybe haven't done as well against the top sides in Serie A. If you look through their results, they've been picking up a lot of points against maybe mid-table teams. But I still think the price is too big on Lazio, given just how good they've been at home this season. And just very quickly, Dan, we've obviously got this blanket race for the title in Serie A. Lazio at the moment are plus 4,000 to win the Serie A title, even though they're only 3 points off the top. Now, I personally don't think they're going to win the title, but when you're only 3 points off the top with 40% of the season gone and you're plus 4,000, it's obviously a lot of teams in there, Inter, Atalanta, Napoli, Fiorentina, but it's a really big price. If they were to win this game, then that price will definitely be sure to come Tuesday morning here in Europe. So lots of interesting angles on Lazio at the moment, who are obviously one of those sides we didn't maybe think would be doing quite this well. And I think at the moment they're still a little bit underrated.
Yeah, I think that is very, very fair given where they are in the league and given the performances they're putting in. A bit of a smash and grab at Napoli, but it was a low-scoring game and they sort of half deserved to win it, I thought. That's your Monday lean from James. Steve, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We'll keep everyone updated via our X feeds, of course. That is a wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European Show. We'll be back next week for picks, plays, hot dogs, live shows, of course, every single midweek day, 11 a.m. Eastern. Follow us on @BecauseWeWin on Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube channel. From all of us for now, though, it is goodbye.